In Chapter 9, we ask ourselves, how do I lead organization-wide transformational change? Now, this entire book is focused on organization-wide transformational change. And what this chapter simply does is that it ties these concepts together into one overarching framework that you've seen throughout the rest of the book. For this reason, the walkthrough will be a little bit shorter than other chapters. Now, if you just start asking people, do you embrace change? Do you like change? Nearly everyone says yes. But what they really mean is that they like change when it directly benefits them, generally in the near term. If it's change and it doesn't directly benefit them, or there's some real pain points along the way, people are less enthusiastic about change. And now, so the entire book is focused on improving and changing. And one of the focuses throughout this book is that it's not about change just before impending collapse. It's not like we're changing, otherwise we're all going to die and it's all going to end, but rather we need to change constantly for continuous improvement. Although, the impending collapse is a real possibility if there's not that constant change along the way. Now, there are two different frameworks that are blended together in this chapter that are used to help us improve the odds for these changes that we've been discussing for all of these chapters. And the first is focusing on both performance and health, equal focus across them both. Now, how do they define performance and health? Well, performance is the process where you buy your inputs and you make your product and then you sell your product. What most people imagine is this is what a business is. It's the technical aspects, the hard, it's operational, it's the business. Whereas with the health, it's more aligning and executing and renewing our vigor. It's adaptive, it's soft, it's cultural and behavioral. Now, with any change, both of these need to be right, and so there should be equal focus on the performance and the health. Now, we're going to tie this performance and health framework together with the steps of transformation and the 5 A's that you've seen throughout this book so far, which are aspire, assess, architect, act, and advance. And so we take each one of these steps, we'll start with aspire. Where do we want to go? We've talked a lot about that. From a performance perspective, you're laying out the strategy of the organization, but you need to take into account the behavioral aspects, the health targets. Are we ready to make that change? Second, we assess how ready are we to go there. We now know where we need to be. Well, we can walk through and say, here are these individuals that have these skill sets, but we need to take into account the underlying mindset to make those change and apply those capabilities. Third is architect. How do we need, or what do we need to do to get there? And so this is from a performance perspective. It's like you have your map and we have our target and we have where we are today, and we're going to plot out on this map. Here are all the turns, and turn left on this interstate and right here. And we have all of this entire a portfolio of initiatives. But beyond that, to make each one of those changes along the way, we need the right people on board with the right buy-in. So we have to take into account this influence model. Fourth is acting. So along this journey, how do we manage the journey? Well, we've planned out not just the portfolio of initiatives, but along the way, how we're going to sustain that. Well, we have to take into account the motivation, generating that energy and that excitement throughout the process, and have that planned out. And finally, once we arrive there, how do we keep moving forward and maintain a culture of continuous improvement? Well, great. So there's your 5 steps of transformation, and then taking into account both the performance and health aspects. It's a great framework for any change management scenario. And throughout this process, we need to take into account the cognitive psychology tools that we've discussed previously, such as the focus on improvement and strengths, and making sure that there's buy-in, that there's ownership, that processes are fair. And using these tools and following this framework is a way to increase our odds of success with any organization-wide transformational change.